Welcome to the Commander Crash Course covering Atemsis, All Seeing. Hope you're excited to talk about alternative win conditions and some high converted mana cost cards. But let's go and start off with the actual commander itself, and that's going to be Atemsis, All Seeing. So, 6 total mana flying. Then for a 3 mana activation, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Then whenever it deals damage to an opponent, now that's not just combat damage, as long as it just deals damage somehow. Reveal your hand. If you have at least 6 different converted mana cost cards in your hand, that player loses the game. So, a couple different things to take away from this. This is a mono blue commander, so you're going to be running a lot of counter spells, a lot of card draw, but it's nice to have a mono blue commander and have that alternative win condition. You know, there's a lot of times where if you're playing mono blue, other than just locking your opponent out of the game, sometimes you just want to have something that's just win the game. This definitely gives you that on a commander, and cannot wait to go for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, let's talk about some of the different ways that you can definitely go for that different converted mana cost card in your hand. One of the really cool ways that you can really utilize this commander's power is by returning stuff back to your hand. You know, you can cast stuff onto the battlefield, get a lot of your early mana rocks, then cast one of these 3 cards, send them back, and get that to count towards that 6 different converted mana costs. So, Hurkyl's Recall, Paradoxical Outcome, and Aetherize. These are all unique ways that we can further our board state, start attacking our opponent's life total. Once we get that trigger on the stack, in response to that trigger, we can send a lot of this stuff back. So Hurkyl's Recall, we're going to be able to return all of our artifacts back to our hand. Now, the cool thing with Paradoxical Outcome is there may be some times to where if your back's against the wall, you have to go for a win. With Paradoxical Outcome, you can return maybe 4 out of the 6 converted mana cost cards to your hand from the battlefield. But the cool thing about Paradoxical Outcome is it says draw a card for each permanent return this way. So if you want to be a little bit risky, you can go for Paradoxical Outcome. You can return everything back, even though you may have 4 out of the 6, and just keep your fingers crossed that you run into something that's going to complete that converted mana cost. But other than that, it's just going to allow you to cash in some good card draw, send it back, and hopefully go for that win. Same thing with Aetherize. You know, let's say that we need to have our commander be the 6 converted mana cost spell to get for the win. So let's say we swing in, we deal that damage before we end up getting out of the combat step. We go for Aetherize, send all of our attacking creatures back to our hand. So you can definitely see where, you know, in combination with Hurkyl's Recall or Aetherize, being able to send stuff back to your hand allows you to recast it, get some extra value, whether it's enter the battlefield effects or simply just going for that win condition. So that's kind of one of the quick ways that you can really utilize the win condition for this commander without getting really nutty with your commander converted mana cost cards within your deck. Now, one of the other ways that you can really kind of go for that is going to be running delve spells. These are going to be high converted mana cost spells, and they're not going to be so far out of reach to where you can't cast them. With these delve spells, you can exile stuff out of your graveyard. Temporal Trespass, you know, there's not a lot of cards that you can be running in commander that have 11 total mana, and it's going to give you a really nice effect once you kind of build up that graveyard with stuff to delve away. Same thing with Dig Through Time. You know, typically you're not running 8 converted mana cost. You can use Dig Through Time as the other card of one of the 6, or you can simply just sculpt your hand and find the last 2 missing cards that you're looking for to kind of help go for that win condition. And, you know, also cards like Elder Deep Fiend. You know, there's a lot of times to where we can sacrifice, depending on what sort of creature base you have, you can use Elder Deep Fiend to kind of tap down some of your opponent's flying threats, or simply just have it in there to be the 8 converted mana cost missing puzzle piece. Same thing with cards that have the miracle ability. Temporal Mastery and Devastation Time. With Temporal Mastery, this can allow you to take an extra turn. It's going to be 7 mana, but you can cast it for 2 if you hit it off Miracle. Same thing with Devastation Tide. You're looking at 2 mana to kind of act as a backup Cyclonic Rift. So as far as kind of varying the different the converted mana cost cards in this deck, there's a lot of options out there that just really aren't that far-fetched. And, you know, a lot of these cards right here, you're pretty much going to be running them in mono blue anyway, and that's also going to help you get that different converted mana cost to hopefully make somebody lose the game. Now, if you want to get weird, if you want to have fun, there's Blink Moth Infusion. That's going to be 12 mana, 14 total converted mana cost. There you go. There's not a lot of them out there. Probably not going to run this spell, but it is worth highlighting that Affinity is another one of those reducer abilities that's going to reduce the cost of a spell, so that way you can get out a little bit quicker. So probably not going to go for Blink Moth Infusion. Just keep in mind that depending on how heavy of an artifact build you go for, the affinity for artifacts, it might really help you kind of churn out some of those spells. Now, one of the other cool ways that we can deal this trigger, get this trigger going without actually dealing combat damage to an opponent, is by having some sort of ping effect. Cards like Thornbite Staff, Sorcerer's Wand, and Viridian Longbow, these are all artifacts that we can get onto our commander, activate that ability, deal damage, and then get that trigger to enable. There's no better feeling than imagine your commander on the battlefield, the Sorcerer's Wand pointing at your opponent saying, hey, you lose the game. There you go. Pretty cool. Outside of the artifacts, there are a few different enchantments that allow you to tap your creature to deal some damage. There's Study and also Psionic Gift. The cool thing about Study is, let's say that you go for one of these activated pinging deaths against your opponent. Your opponent's face is going to look just like the person on that Study card. They're going to be like, do what? It's going to feel pretty good too. But yeah, those are just different ways that you can get that trigger going, depending on how many different cards you have in your hand. And of course, we finally found a home for Razor Boomerang. It actually kind of works out. It is 3 total mana. You attach it onto your creature, you can ping somebody, and then once you deal that damage, it's going to go back to your hand, and then there's a 3 converted mana cost card. There's not a lot of effects out there that deal damage, get this trigger going, and return it back to your hand. So if you've got 5 out of the 6 and number 3 makes 6 out of 6, hey, you found a home for Razor Boomerang. I'm sure all your copies of Razor Boomerang will be really happy. One of the other ways that we can kind of keep that damage flowing is by running some sort of tap and untap effect. Don't know how heavy I'm going to go on these cards, but depending on your meta, you may want to include a bunch of these in there, especially if you need to one-shot the table. Since I deal a lot of 1-versus-1 commander, I just typically need to make one person lose, so that's what's kind of nice. So when you're playing a multiplayer table, you need to have access to ways to untap and untap your commander. So Free from the Real, Crab Umbra, and Aura. These are all ways that you can get it onto your commander, tap and untap, and then go to town targeting your opponent. Now, some of the utility cards that really kind of help push our game plan. Training Grounds, it's really not that crazy. You have a 3-mana activated ability to draw 2 cards and discard a card. Once you get down Training Grounds, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of crossover value in the deck, but simply just getting it down and having a blue mana activation to draw 2 cards and loot, that's going to be a really nice effect. Same thing with Strionic Resonator. With Strionic Resonator, you can copy target triggered ability. So one of the cool things about this is that, let's say that you go for the ping death option, you go for Strionic Resonator, you can target another person with that triggered ability. If you already have the cards in the hand, you are good to go. And also Unesh. Unesh is going to be good in the deck, but I bring this up because Unesh is going to be so happy to have this commander in the actual 99 if you play Unesh Tribal. Basically, it's going to be Commander B for the deck. It's nice to have Unesh go 100 miles an hour the value train, but being able to have a commander that also, not a commander, but an extra card or like a lieutenant for the deck that helps you kind of close the game out. That is some good magic right there. Now, some of the other good utility cards is going to be Scroll Rack and Azor's Gateway. Scroll Rack is going to allow us to kind of stack the top part of our library. That way we can kind of shuffle, not necessarily shuffle cards around, but just kind of use it as a placeholder to store cards. And then Azor's Gateway, we're running a lot of cards that have different converted mana costs in here. And with Azor's Gateway, we're going to be able to use that to kind of loot and dig and find some answers. And at the same time, if we can get Azor's Gateway to flip, that's going to be a ton of mana, depending on what your life total is. And it's always a good feeling to get that to flip. Outside of the actual utility cards, this is definitely mono blue, and you definitely want to go heavy artifact ramp and heavy card draw. So Soul Ring, Sky Diamond, Thran Dynamo, Gilded Lotus, Mind Stone, Felmore Stone, any sort of artifact that's going to help you get ahead on mana and churn out some really nice X draw cards. Stroke of Genius, Pull from Tomorrow. You want to be able to untap. Let's say that you can't get the combat trigger going, or you simply just can't find those 6 different converted mana cost cards. You want to be able to just draw as many cards as possible at the end of your opponent's turn. That way you can set up a nice win for yourself. And Pull from Tomorrow and Stroke of Genius definitely help you do that. And plus, having a lot of artifacts in here, it's really going to help you get your commander out a lot quicker and put some pressure on your opponent, which is always a nice feeling. Now, speaking of card draw, one thing that you do want to definitely keep in mind with your build of this deck is running some sort of wheel effect. These are cheap ways to access a ton of cards really quickly. JC's Archivist, it has that blue mana activation. Time Twister is a wonderful way to shuffle your graveyard back in your library, but Jolt, it's like $2,000. Not on Magic Online. That's one of the nice things. It's $1 on Magic Online. So if you don't play with Time Twister, make sure you get a Magic Online account, and you get to play with Time Twister. But if you play Paper Magic, it's probably out of your budget range. I know it's out of my budget, but it's nice to keep that in mind if you're a Magic Online player. It's only like $1. It's pretty good. And also cards like Windfall, this is going to be more your traditional actual wheel effects with Windfall. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number this way. So that's another way to kind of make sure you keep your hand refueled and going for those 6 different cards. Now, one of the other ways that we really want to support this card draw is making sure that we don't have to discard cards out of our hand. Thought Vessel, Reliquary Tower, these are great options to make sure that we don't have to basically no maximum hand size. We can just keep the cards that we need. And the same thing with Archive. Let's say that we have Archive on the battlefield. We go for Pull from Tomorrow for X equals 6. That's going to be 12 cards that we're drawing. More than likely, you're going to hit that 6 different converted mana costs, simply just getting down Archive and just doing your normal mono blue card draw. But that is going to be it for the deck tech. The way I do these decks is, let's say that I'm sure there's some cards that I missed, and I'm sure that there's some interactions that I missed. So if you're seeing this video and you're saying, hey, I'm going to put this card in my deck, or this would go good in this deck, leave it in the comments below. That way, if somebody comes across this video and they want to build this commander, they can read through the comments and also see different suggestions that people have made. And, it's always nice to just be able to make a commander stronger. But that is going to be it for the video. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.